guess we're going to start it off, other folks will wander in. Now, most people know me as this fellow here, E.P. Grondine, Native American historian of Native America. Oh, come on. Now, I'm the author of Man Impact the Americas, which actually is the book of Native American history. This is probably the first book to talk about the common impacts that killed the man of the Mastodon. I published before Dr. Firestone and Dr. Kennett. The situation is this. I was a space journalist. I reported on the Soviet, then the Russian, and Chinese space programs. I didn't work for NASA, I reported on NASA. Now I'm going to go through two of my big scoops here. This thing, which was the Soviet answer to Star Wars, is an orbital weapons platform. And they did launch it. Here it is being launched. Gorbachev dumped this in the ocean because he realized it was a Chernobyl in orbit. At least that's a current story, and it's likely true. There is a picture of it in orbit without the cover name, which was Mir. It's actually Polyus. Now here I am busy at work. I like this. They have a little reception for the shuttle missions to the Mir space station. You know, nice bouzouki band out, and pierogies on the buffet, and I got that done. Now this is another one I did, my big scoops. This is I was the first person to spot the new Chinese manned space program. The situation is this picture was in a Chinese publication on their new rockets. And they had announced that that was 5 meters across. Well, I worked out the dimensions. I noticed the escape rocket on top up here. Unmanned space probes don't have an escape rocket. That's manned. I realized that was a man. I broke out the dimensions on it, and sure enough, it was for their current generation of rockets. I actually had a French news agency offer to send me over to when they first launched this thing. Now, about 1997, there was a movie out called Asteroid. Kathy Sawyer of the Washington Post wrote a review of this and said nobody had ever been killed by impact. And I seem to remember that 4 people were killed at Tunguska. Instead of going into my clip files, I went online and I discovered the work of Kluge and Napier. And it turned out that boatloads of people had been killed by impact events. And I suddenly realized that NASA had made NASA's estimate of the impact hazard was it's easily 100 times too low. And finally, in 2005, the Congress gave direct instructions to NASA to handle this problem, which the NASA administrator blew off. But our current NASA administrator is on top of it, Administrator Bridenstine. So chances are good that we'll be ready for Comet Schwarzman-Wapner 3 when its fragments pass through the inner solar system in 2023. I was pretty floored by this at the time. I mean, essentially what you got is a threat to hundreds of millions of people's lives, and nobody's doing spit about it. So, I'm out doing inventories of impacts around the world. These things do not hit that often. European history in the Americas goes back 500 years. The rest of it's Native American history. And I had to have this book out. My book distribution fell through. And I'm a Native American historian. I go out to powwows. Here's your history. And everybody says, yeah, okay, thank you. So that works pretty good. So now, the title of Who Built Serpent Mound? And here we have Putnam's map of Serpent Mound. Okay, it's really straightforward. At the end of that serpent, down here, you'll see the big barrel mound, the conical barrel mound. You'll see right out through that gate. And here's a picture of the big cone. Well, it turns out that the barrel in that was 9 foot tall with disarticulated bones, which means the guy had to be 8 foot tall while he was living. This is from a secondary barrel in that big mound without the ankles, and that was estimated at 7 foot tall. So there's only one native people that have that height here in the eastern United States. That's the Andans, who are actually a real people lived in Pennsylvania along the Susquehanna River, and we have colonial records of them, and yes, they were 7.5 foot tall as common height. Not all Native Americans are short. Despite Kickapoo Joe and Little Abner, there were tall Native Americans. And now this is well known. This has been known since the 1950s when Dr. Good and Neumann excavated over Pennsylvania. And they spent half of the standard book on Adena talking about these tall skeletons. Well, it's ignored here in Ohio. They refuse to acknowledge that there were tall Native Americans and that they lived here in Ohio. And I'm going to show you how bad. This is Dr. Becker, who is a world-famous, world-ranked physical anthropologist. And if you really have any problems with this, you can contact him. He'll be happy to straighten you out on tall Native Americans. Give you an idea. This is my friend Bernie. And he's a Cherokee descent. The height gene expressed in him. I'd like to thank him for that. Now I'm going to show you how the archaeologists here in Ohio handle Adena. It's all here in Ohio. You see the little green area? That's what they call Adena. The problem that you got with that is that Adena has been known to be over on the Chesapeake Bay. This has been known since the 1950s. These guys in Ohio are incompetent. I'm sorry, they're absolutely horrible. Jeff's talked to you about the date that they got on this thing. I use that in my book, talking about the 1066 thing of Halley's Comet. It wasn't that at all. This thing was built 2,000 years before that by the Andans. Now they were driven out of this area, and I'm going to go back to actually out to the East Coast, up to the Susquehanna. They were ex-mitochondrial DNA. And you'll see that actually they originate over here. You can see the arrows of the distribution here, which is around the Black Sea. And then you have this bunch up in North America. They show up on the coast of Canada in 8,350 BC. We'll be getting into that in a minute here. Now, what I also happen to notice, you're going to see the spikes. You'll see this spike on the left after 50,000 BC. When there is a large hypervelocity impact, gamma rays are produced, which leads to elevated rise in carbon-14 production. Here's Meteor Crater out in Arizona. Give you an idea how big this thing is. That little white dot down at the bottom of that is a house. It's about a mile across. I mean, it's huge. And this is, oh wait a minute, there we go, this. Yeah, you see the little white house down at the bottom. You see the people up on the rim there at the visitor center. That's a house down at the bottom. Give you an idea, the kill zone from that thing when it hit effectively was out to that blue ring. What you see. So there's a Winslow over there, which is within the kill zone. That entire area was likely entirely destroyed. On this one, they're given a immediate thermal and then high winds and then a blast zone. But when you get stuff on fire and it's rolling along, it's going to set everything else on fire. And it only takes 1.8 atmospheres of overpressure to rupture the lungs of any air-breathing creature. So all the fauna within that area died. Now, going on here, I'm going to go on to the Holocene stark impact events, which are over here. You'll see these two spikes right here. There are actually two comet impacts. And my paper on this is available on academia.edu. It describes the impacts along the Canadian ice sheet. And then we have a global sea level rises as the meltwater comes off. That killed, the second one of these, there was the global dust storm that occurred, and it killed all the mammoth and mastodon. The way I keep them straight is that the mastodon ate tree limbs and the mammoth ate the bushes. And and I set that out in Man Impact America. At the time, all we had was the distribution of mucks and Hibbins nose from Alaska. Later on, this is all confirmed by Dr. Firestone and Dr. Kennett. There's Firestone, and here's Dr. Kennett out in the field. And here's the global layer of that impact height dust. If an elephant doesn't eat in 3 weeks, it's dead. these guys couldn't eat, they died. It's real straightforward, it's really easy. And this is true globally. This dust hail caused what we know as a nuclear winter. So 43 species of megafauna go extinct around the globe, without any dependence upon the number of hunters around. And again, that's the second, that final spike you see right before it's right there. This is before present, I think. So it's right there at 13,000 before present, that big one. Damn it, can somebody tell that guy to shut that the hell up? Okay. I'll stop talking until he gets done. Oh, well, I hope I'm going to pick it up here. Actually, hell, I don't need this. You can all hear me, can't you?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, that saves all the feedback problems. I can just shout. Now, what we're looking at, this is one of the likely, this may be a structure up by Kiskoti, Alberta. What happened was 3 to 4 miles of ice was blown off the surface of the Earth, so instead of having a crater down, the rock will rebound from where the ice is blown off. There's a hole in the ice sheet. The rock comes up. This may be one of those. We don't know yet. Still being worked on. You can see where the meltwater comes out. We have flows on the meltwater, so we can track it back to where on the ice sheet we hit. Over there. And you can see where the meltwater pulse 1A and 1B are at. Neither one are at the younger dries. These things are actually the Holocene start impact events, and there's 2 of them. The meltwater pulse 1A and the meltwater pulse 1B.
That's different than the younger dries?
It was given the name the younger dryas, but you can see that traditionally this is when the younger dryas was declared. What's under that YD line? Meltwater pulse 1A is over there, meltwater pulse 1B is over there. So, you know, there's a lot of confusion at this point. We're working 15,000 years ago, so, you know, it's tough. Now, so you can see the second one of those. As I pointed out, there's the 2 spikes in gamma ray production from large hypervelocity impacts. Now, what happened with that rise in sea level is it flooded the Black Sea. So that's the homeland of these ex-mitochondrial DNA people. They're eating, you know how the we've grown since we've had good diets? Well, these guys had good diets for tens of thousands of years. That's why they're 7.5 foot tall. And we can track them coming on out. I want to say Andrew Collins wrote an excellent book called From the Ashes of Angels. That covers the Nephilim. They get a lot of crap about that. These people do not read their Bibles. The Nephilim are the ancient Near East, and they are ex-mitochondrial DNA. They're in what's northern Iran, Syria today. Northern Syria today, Syria-Turkey war. And his book is excellent. This gives you an idea of how his artist reconstructed them from the records. But our guys over here are not Nephilim. They are ex-mitochondrial DNA, but they're in North America. Nephilim are over there, that way. You know, half a world away, and several thousand years different than our guys, the Andes, here. They show up, they start to show up here. You'll see Canadian Maritime Archaic up on the coast up there. The 8,350 BC is that. And you'll see the dates in the old copper culture area. Essentially, when they come in, there are areas known from Moreno Bay Chirp that runs down to Maine. So, and then they go down to St. Lawrence, they go out in the Canadian plains, they become Canadian red ochre, different from Ohio red ochre. And from that point on, they turn into the old copper culture because their tools, they transfer their tools. Here's a distribution site of maps along the Great Lakes. And they find this copper and they say, hey, we can make tools out of copper. So if you go to Green Bay, you'll see all their tools, the red ochre tools, made in copper. They have the red ochre tools here, the copper tools here. It's real straightforward. That's the people. Again, it's Susquehanna. Well, okay, this is about 2350. There's an impact in South America. Raises a hell of a lot of dirt into the atmosphere. We have another nuclear winter. And by the way, when I say a nuclear winter, you have to realize that half of your friends, or maybe you, would starve to death if we got hit again at this level and had this much dirt put up in the atmosphere. We have a population on the globe of 7 billion people. We could expect maybe 1 billion. So I'm talking about 6 billion lives here. That was the reason for my efforts and concerns. And to tell you the truth of the matter, I'm fed up with Native American history. I want to go to Hollywood and sell science fiction. And it's much easier, much more fun. I'm ready.
Much more money, Ed.
Yes, yes indeed. Oh, there's another little catch here, which is that you can't make money selling Native history. It's frowned upon. If you told people that you were going to sell Native American history for cash, it's really frowned upon. I got a lot of stuff just for putting Native American history in written. But I pointed out to them that all the sources I used were people that shared it with people who were going to put it in written form. But I still got crap. All right, this is where that hit in South America down here. Like I say, just common fragments, threw up just one hell of a lot of dirt. At this point, our old copper culture decides it's time to move south. So they start off going here along the lakes, down the Piamatunga, Shenango at Conneaut, go into Pittsburgh, down the Ohio to Kanawha, up the Kanawha to the New River, then take the Roanoke River over to the coast. They ford at Draper's Meadow. And this is an example of their stuff. You'll see these large chunks of copper. This is from Grave Creek, and there's the Grave Creek. Now, this is Draper's Meadow where they ford. Oh no, we're still at Grave Creek. I'm looking at the next picture now. I'm sorry, I got the advanced slide view over here to remind me as to what I'm going to speak about next. So, but yeah, this is still Grave Creek if you've been down to Moundsville. Draper's Meadow is part of the ford, and you'll see this model over here where they chipped off from the rock face over here on the right. Can anybody see that? Is that clear? Can anybody see that picture? It's this huge tower. They just cut it off the rock out. And now we go on down. This one's in North Carolina. It's not protected. I really can't tell you where this mound is at. Someday maybe I'll be able to. But if you go down the road and you run into the right people, you might get a chance to visit. That's just one of them things. So now, here they are. They are Andest, not Adena. The name Adena comes from a farm where the remains were first excavated. Now I'm going to go through some of the Adena features and show them here at Serpent. I guess the first thing is the serpent itself. This is from Petersburg Rock. This is a petroglyph up in Canada. You see the serpent running up there with the horns coming off it. That is an Adena. That's where this serpent comes from, but it has a lot more complexity. We don't have the curves. We got a little spiral down the tail, but not the curves that we have later on. There's Serpent Mound. Now Jeff's book, when he has that out, there's something like 143 serpent structures in the eastern United States. When his book comes out, he'll have a list of them. I could talk about a few of them that I know of, but he's really a better person to talk to about the other ones besides that. Now let's see what we have here. Oh, here's the serpent. Okay. And I think this may be a little maintenance map of it. Okay. Now, the dating on this thing. It's real easy. It's about 1000 BC. That's when they come to this area. Their initial move was down the Ohio River to the Kanawha. After the Great Atlantic Impact megatsunami, about 1000 BC, they continue down the Ohio River. And that's when they show up here. And you'll see the radiocarbon dates over here on this far edge. It's 1000 BC. Mr. Leopard, look, fundamentally, when you get a radiocarbon date at a site that's been used over a very long period of time, you go back to the previous excavations, you read through this. Mr. Leopard did not. He's ignorant and doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's incompetent. And I'm fed up with it. I am fed up to the teeth with the Ohio Historical Society. I've watched the two local park guys try and get the ring across from the apartment in Newark re-landscaped, and they both have resigned in disgust from fighting with it. And I just can't say enough bad about it, but certainly right to your legislature, these guys canceled the most popular Native American themed event in Ohio, which was down at the Fort Ancient Powwow, due to casino Indian pressure. They don't know who they're dealing with. Okay, this is stratigraphy, and you'll see that there's Bill Romaine's dates right there, that 375 BC strata that he's interested in. But it actually goes back much earlier up here, from when they first entered the area. Because if you go to Putnam's excavation reports and look at the artifacts they have, they're back to 1000 BC. Because they've been dug up and dated at other sites. And that's where incompetence gets you. A date that's a published date that's 2,000 years wrong for this. And I want to say Mr. Lepper's going to come over tomorrow afternoon and try and bullshit people and convince them that he's right, and I plan to attend that. I don't know if I'm going to say anything, but it's going to be a chuckle.
Oh, you'll be saying something.
I'll probably ask him about good archaeological practice,
Okay.
which is to consult the previous excavation notes before you publish. If you can't, actually before you excavate, if you can't do that, certainly before you publish. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given us bad radiocarbon dates. Had he have known that he dug into Putnam's previous excavation pit, which he didn't know because he never looked at Putnam's excavation dates. That's incompetence.
Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned before, these guys are tall, 7.5 foot tall. And we have this one print that came out from Putnam's excavation. And it's widely been dismissed, but the one from the glass plate that Jeff Wilson has is dead on. A disarticulated skeleton that's 9 foot in length. That means that you put it on his face for the bone separator, that guy had to be 8 foot tall when he was alive. So we know they're tall, and there's no other people around except for the Indians that meet that requirement. Now, I've talked about the old copper culture earlier. Copper. Well, what do we have here at Serpent Mound? Guess what? These big chunks of copper. This is not the flat copper that comes from Copper Hill, Tennessee, which is 18 acres of copper mining. That's all flat sheet copper. This is big chunks of copper. This is straight from Ile Royale and over in Canada, over at Sault Ste. Marie, and that area. Now, stone cairns. This is a common Adena burial feature. Well, there's the head of the serpent. Go into this guy's farm. There's all these stone burials, which are still on his property, which he would be happy to sell to the state of Ohio if the Ohio Historical Society would only get its scene together, which I doubt they will ever. So we have the Adena burials right over there. No problem. Now, here we go. Monoliths. Now this is a new feature. Fletcher and I have spoken here for years on this, and one of the things, Jeff Wilson and Ross Hamilton, God bless him, they're confused, but there is a monolith down below the hill here. And this one shows you where it's at. It's only graded, which is good. But there's monoliths. I knew about this monolith over in Pennsylvania. There's this monolith over in Missouri. And Fletcher and I went out and did the monoliths down at the Plains, Chalk Cross, Homer, and other places. And we're currently documenting the Adena monoliths. So, yeah, absolutely. If you'll come over, Fletcher knows the ancient stoneworking techniques. We'll be happy to tell you about all the tool markings on these stones. No question. We know they're not native stones. They were moved into place. So this is a cultural feature. We have a video online, and actually I'll have a video. I'll play it over at the booth for you, assuming your laptop works and you can see the screen. Called Adena Monoliths, which is on YouTube. I have another one on Adena Petroglyphs, which is on YouTube, discussing Adena Petroglyphs. They're rocky breeds. And there's another one. I think that's Chalk Cross. Now, line of sight signaling. Fletcher is one of Ohio's leading naked eye astronomers, and is also was a telephone lineman that knows Ohio like all these understand. He mapped out the Adena sites, and we have a straight line running from Newark down to Ripley, right through here. Give you an idea, there's a degree of deviation. These guys are using line of sight communication. Now, we find a lot of iron pyrite, and they weren't only using fires at night. We find a lot of iron pyrite in their graves. Well, they would polish that into mirrors and glue it onto pies. This is a petroglyph. You'll see the staff with the shield to reflect sunlight. And here we have a boat with one of those shields on. Now, if you're up on the lakes, these things will go, I think it's about 180 miles for sunlight. You have a long measuring distance, as we know from the Mediterranean, because the ancient Minoans used line of sight communications too. So, there's no problem if they're going out on the lakes to find the other port, because they just signal with some sunlight. Reflects some sunlight out to where they are. There's our port, that's where we need to go to. And you can see them on the boat down here. And here's another one. This one's over on the Ohio River. You see there. So that those staffs to reflect sunlight were a common feature. Now, I'm going to go back up here. You see this guy with the wings down here? Okay, another Adena feature, they did excarnation. You'll hear them talk about how they have a wood henge over here. Well, having seen briefly what was found in that area over here, it's likely to have been an excarnation platform. Essentially, the four holes in the center of that floor platform, you put the body on that, it has a wooden screen around it. The birds eat the flesh off of it. And again, there's a guy in his winged regalia. And this is over on Susquehanna River. And again, we have the guys in the winged regalia. So this is very much a common Adena theme. Adena period structures. That's what's going on here. Now I'm going to go back on. Now, I'm going to go down to the Hope. The Adena were nasty assholes. And other Native American peoples hate them. They were greedy, practiced child sacrifice, very creative forms of torture. And they were just greedy because if they called you on what they could claim was their land, you were cooked. I mean, they will kill you very creatively. The Serpent itself was built. This is actually Putnam's cross section. It was covered up when they were kicked out. And probably one of the big things they did up here was celebrating kicking the Andes out. It went off quite a while. How much of the commentary impacted the astronomical war continued? Well, certainly not what the Andes did. That's for sure. Because their practices are born to every other Native American people. Again, we have the 1000 BC, we have the other group up here at 365, and that would probably be a good guess for the introduction to kicking the Andes out of here and beginning to hope on use of this site. What Jeff didn't talk about was originally several cremation stands running down the east side of the Serpent, where the bodies of people would be buried. The smoke takes the spirit up to the sky, releases earthly energy. Now here's the Andes. Now these guys were genocidally exterminated by the Jamestown colonists in 1676, but we have a few accounts of them. John Smith actually was up there. He gives us an account of it. And Thomas also, God bless him. And there's another guy here. Oh God, if I can remember his name. Come on over, I have the book. Anyway, so we only have about 3 accounts. This is a map of the province, and it shows there 4. This is a late one. It has a thing about their alignment with the 5 nations before they were exterminated. Here's what we know of their religion. And I'm going to read this. They know no other deity than the devil, solid or profound, or with a kind of foul imaginary conjecture. They suppose from their groundless conceits that the world had a maker, but where he is that made it, or whether he be living to this day, they know not. The devil, as I said before, is all the god they own or worship, and that more out of a slavish fear than any real reverence
his infernal or diabolical greatness. He forcing them to their obedience by his rough and rigid dealing with them, often appearing visibly among them to their terror, bastinning them, beating them with cruel menaces, even unto death, and burning their fields of corns and houses, that their relation thereof makes them tremble themselves when they tell it. They're describing impact events, which were an essential feature of their culture. And that's why the comet is so big in their culture. Now, here we go. Every 4 years they sacrifice a child to him as an acknowledgement of their firm obedience to all his devilish powers and hellish commands. The mouth of that serpent was filled with ash, if I remember correctly. That was likely to be from cremations of victims, sacrificial victims. I don't know if they found other Adena sites, Andas sites you find in the big mounds. They'll have children interred, which is sacrifices that also is referring to. Now, I'm going to finish this off. I think I saw this on where all things are connected, which I kind of like. I thought, yeah, that's actually how the world works. And here's where I was, and here's where I am today. Now, I haven't been all bad. This is me down at Burnt Corn, Alabama, which is actually near the site of the Battle of Mobile, where the soda was defeated. Oh, you missed most of it. That's okay. I'll do it over the booth. Okay? Now, to put this in perspective for you, you see our sun down here? You are here. That's where you're at in the Milky Way. We have Comet Schwarzmann Walkman 3 is going to be right here in the solar system. This chain of fragments, which is I don't know how many thousands of kilometers long, will be coming in 2023. NASA has to be ready because any of those chunks are sufficient to take out a state for our tropics. We have to be ready. We had a small piece hit in 2006, which was only like 500 pounds of TNT up in Moss, Norway. But these are way bigger than that. This is enough to take out a nation. If the United States were to lose a state, would it still be the same country? How about if it lost 3 or 4? Would it still be the same country? Well, any of those pieces in that chain are big enough to do that. They are traveling at cosmic velocities. Now, so far we've had a lot of this stuff, where quiet Peterson, if I stare at it enough, it'll go away. Well, it doesn't work that way. You might have noticed that a couple of years ago with Chelyabinsk, about 3 years back, they didn't even see it. And that, if that thing had been coming in just at a little bit of different angle, they would have lost. Actually, they would have lost the whole of the Urals because there were 5 nuclear reactors under that. So if you have an air-burst impact, 1.8 atmospheres of overpressure, all the attendants of that nuclear reactor are dead. For all 5 nuclear reactors, they all go to Chernobyl. You would have 5 Chernobyls. Russia would have lost the Urals. It was that close. Now, not only do we have comets coming in, we have asteroids. And here's one that's going to be in, I think this may be DA, whatever the number is. That's going to be in, I think, 2029. You know, they predict that it's not going to hit anything. On the other hand, if it runs into another little bit of speech chunk out there, it could well come in and hit us. The estimates are, this was the earlier estimate when they thought on Earth collision. Essentially, that entire area of the Pacific coast would have been destroyed, running from Baja, California up to the west coast of Canada. That gives you some idea of what a impact mega tsunami does. And here we go, wishes. When you wish upon a falling star, your dream can come true, unless it's really a meteorite hurling to the earth, which will destroy all life. Then you're pretty much hosed no matter what you wish for, unless it's death by meteor. And that, folks, that's the lecture. I got the booth up. Be happy to take questions.